November 22nd, 1963. For most, this date conjures a single, tragic image: a motorcade in Dallas, a nation in shock. But what about the hours leading up to that fateful moment? John F. Kennedy's final day was a whirlwind of political activity, public appearances, and private moments, all unfolding under the bright Texas sun. Let's travel back in time and walk through JFK's last 24 hours, hour by hour, to understand the man behind the myth on his final day. Our story begins the night before, November 21st. After a full day of events in San Antonio and Houston, Air Force One touched down at Carswell Air Force Base in Fort Worth around 11:07 p.m. A large, enthusiastic crowd greeted the President and First Lady, Jackie Kennedy. Despite the late hour and a persistent drizzle, they were energized. They checked into Suite 850 of the Hotel Texas. It wasn't just any hotel room. Local art collectors had transformed it into a private gallery, featuring works by Picasso and Van Gogh. Kennedy, a lover of history and art, was deeply impressed. He spent some time on the phone with his team, reviewing the plan for the next day, before finally turning in after midnight. For the president, it was just another night on the road. The morning of November 22nd began early. Kennedy was awake by 7:30 a.m. He made a few phone calls, catching up on the morning news. The headlines were a mixed bag. While his Texas trip was getting positive press, there were also critical editorials, particularly from the Dallas Morning News. Unfazed, Kennedy pointed out one of the negative articles to Jackie, remarking, "We're heading into nut country today." It was a flippant comment, but one that would be remembered with a chilling sense of foreboding. Around 8:45 a.m., Kennedy stepped outside the Hotel Texas to address a crowd that had gathered in the parking lot. It was an impromptu speech, delivered in the light rain without a coat. He was charming and relaxed, joking with the crowd. "There are no faint hearts in Fort Worth," he said, thanking them for their warm welcome. He praised their city and spoke of the nation's defense needs, a key theme of his Texas tour. This was classic JFK, connecting with people directly, effortlessly turning a routine stop into a memorable event. Following his outdoor speech, Kennedy went back inside for a Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce breakfast. In what would be his final public address, he spoke with confidence and vision. He talked about the importance of a strong military and the nation's responsibility as a global leader. He emphasized that strength was not for war, but for maintaining peace. "We are the watchmen on the walls of world freedom," he declared. His words were met with thunderous applause. He seemed to be in his element, a president at the peak of his powers, looking toward the future. After the breakfast, he and Jackie returned to their suite to prepare for the next leg of their journey. The flight from Fort Worth to Dallas was short, just 13 minutes. At 11:25 a.m., Air Force One lifted off. On board, the mood was light. The team was pleased with how the trip was going. The crowds had been huge and overwhelmingly positive, soothing concerns about Kennedy's popularity in a conservative state. The First Lady, Jackie Kennedy, was a star. She was wearing a now iconic pink Chanel-style suit and pillbox hat, chosen specifically for the day. As the plane descended towards Love Field in Dallas, there was no sense of danger, only anticipation for another successful public appearance. At 11:40 a.m., Air Force One landed at Dallas Love Field. As the doors opened, the Kennedys were greeted by a wave of sunshine and the cheers of a massive, welcoming crowd. Any fears of a hostile reception in Dallas seemed to vanish instantly. Jackie was presented with a bouquet of red roses, a stark contrast to the yellow roses of Texas she had been receiving. They spent several minutes shaking hands, with Kennedy patiently moving along the rope line, greeting as many people as he could. Governor John Connally and his wife Nellie were there to welcome them. The atmosphere was electric, a picture-perfect political event. Around 11:55 a.m., the presidential motorcade departed from Love Field, bound for the Dallas Trade Mart, where Kennedy was scheduled to give a luncheon speech. The route was designed to give as many people as possible a chance to see the president. JFK, Jackie, Governor Connally, and his wife Nellie rode together in the open-topped presidential limousine. Kennedy, always eager to connect with the public, had repeatedly requested that the car's clear bubble top be left off, despite the drizzling rain earlier that morning. Now, with the sun out, the decision seemed perfect. As the motorcade moved through the streets of downtown Dallas, the crowds grew larger and more enthusiastic. People lined the sidewalks, waving, cheering, and holding signs. The reception was overwhelmingly warm. At one point, Nellie Connolly turned to the president and said the now famous words, "Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you." Kennedy smiled and replied, "No, you certainly can't." Those would be among his last words. The limousine was filled with optimism, a feeling that the Texas trip was a resounding political success. The motorcade continued along its planned route, turning from Main Street onto Houston Street, and then making a slow, sharp left turn onto Elm Street. This brought them directly in front of the Texas School Book Depository. The clock was ticking towards 12:30 p.m. The car passed by the building, the crowd still cheering. In that moment, everything seemed normal. It was a bright, sunny day, and the president was being celebrated by the people of Dallas. The future seemed full of promise. And then, at 12:30 p.m., the first shot rang out. The rest, as we know, is history. The cheers turned to screams. The day of triumph turned into a national nightmare. In those few seconds in Dealey Plaza, everything changed. But by looking back at the hours before, we see a more complete picture. We see a confident president, a glamorous first lady, and a team optimistic about the future. We see the handshakes, the speeches, and the smiles. This was the final, ordinary day of an extraordinary life. A day that began with hope and ended in a tragedy that would forever mark the soul of a nation. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. It's important to remember not just how historical figures died, but how they lived, right up to their final moments. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the moments that shaped our world. Thanks for watching.